Election year in Washington, lawmakers are among the most vocal in regard to the deal. And with us now on their points of views are Representative Luke Messer, a Republican from Indiana, and Representative Steven Horsford, a Democrat from Nevada, both on the floor and next to each other of the New York Stock Exchange. You guys members of the freshman class at the House, and you're working in a bipartisan way on this issue?
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason for many issues, particularly in the financial services area, to be partisan, and so we're working together in a bipartisan way. You know, the issue with the tax inversion question is this. Obviously, no one's going to defend these tax inversions, but at the same time, it really is a warning signal that we've got to reform our corporate tax code, make it competitive, globally competitive, to attract investment and jobs to America.
But it's actually been the GOP mostly defending tax inversion, saying these are companies that are ultimately doing what's right for corporate profits, and that's going to mean more jobs for the American worker.
Well, I think what folks have defended is the fact that what we need to do, rather than work on just this technical glitch, is try to do what we can to make our corporate tax code more competitive around the globe.
And for you, that means lowering it, correct?
Oh, I think that means lowering it, unquestionably.
And what about you, Representative Horsford?
Well, I'm open to a discussion about lowering the tax rate, but we have to also address deductions and other loopholes that are in the tax policy. That's why we need a comprehensive plan. There is bipartisan recognition that this is not a problem we can solve with just one effort. And need to work together in a bipartisan way to do that.
Well, I'll tell you, when I hear bipartisan and comprehensive tax reform, I think this is going nowhere, and going nowhere fast, because it's true. I mean, make the case that you can actually get comprehensive tax reform to happen. It seems virtually impossible.
But it's important to our economy, to the ability for companies to grow, to create jobs. I have major companies in Las Vegas with our gaming industry that are directly affected by this issue, and so we want to make sure that they can continue to be incentivized to invest here in America.
I mean, what I agree with is that in the rest of the world, people try to start where they agree and move forward when they're trying to reach an agreement. In Washington, sometimes we start where we disagree and stop. We all recognize that our corporate tax code is one of the highest in the world. It's bad for American investment. It's bad for American jobs. We need leadership to start to address it.
And you're president of this freshman Congress, so I appreciate that the leadership at least is coming from that direction. So let's put a couple of proposals out there. What if we took the U.S. corporate tax rate to 22.5%, period? Any objections?
Without addressing deductions and tax loopholes, that would be a non-starter, because you can't continue to incentivize business without getting them to reinvest in America. We can't continue to ship jobs overseas and give them deductions for sending those jobs overseas. So if we're open to addressing all of the tax reforms, then we can have a discussion.
So what would your plan in a nutshell look like?
Well, first, I think we have to start with the issue of the deductions in these tax loopholes. I recognize the need that we need to be competitive globally with our tax rate, but we also have to make sure that we're able to invest in the things here in America that require it.
Yeah, I mean, I would have a much lower corporate tax rate. I think it needs to be the lowest in the world. The bottom line is that we all recognize that there are loopholes that don't really add value to the economy. Nobody's here to defend corporate tax inversions, only to say that these folks have a fiduciary responsibility to maximize profits to their shareholders. What we need, those leadership, frankly, that starts with the president.
But if you took it, so let's say it was the lowest in the world. In fact, I hear guys on Wall Street say, take it all the way to zero. But there's a problem with that, which is that you lose 10% of federal revenues overnight. So is that why you're talking about...
We don't have funding for infrastructure for roads and highways. We already have a $15 billion deficit in our highway transportation fund that needs to be addressed. We don't have proper investment in job creation. So that, to me, would be taking us backwards, not investing in our future.
Of course, the tax inversion question shows you that we could lose that revenue anyway as these businesses go overseas.
Absolutely.
That's why we've got to get globally competitive.
But we have to be careful that Burger King, and they said so in their release, this was not simply about tax inversion alone. There were other issues, primarily about them growing globally their business model, and that had something to do with greater than just their tax policy.
You have no problem being a Burger King's customer.
Well, I try to cut back on the fast food anyway.
Yeah. Well, see, look at that. But quite seriously, I feel like we haven't accomplished anything here. Although you've said what you feel, I don't feel like anything's going to happen.
No, it requires us to have this discussion, and members are prepared, and Luke is right. We've got to have leadership, both in Congress as well as with the executive branch. And the more that we're having the conversation, talking about the need to reform, then hopefully we can get to that resolution that the American public and businesses expect.
And if, based on the latest polls, I don't know whether the Senate, GOP retakes the Senate come the fall. If they do, is it your... What do you think happens?
I think we have a real chance,
then?
frankly, under either election scenario. From my perspective, having a Republican Senate would help. That gives us the opportunity to have a legislative fix, even in the absence of presidential leadership.
Which would look like?
Well, I think it would look like a reduction, something like the Camp bill that you saw come out of the House, which would lower rates for everybody, try to close loopholes. Listen, this is complicated work. The last time major tax reform happened under President Reagan with strong presidential leadership. In the absence of that kind of leadership, it's going to be hard to get this done. My hope, though, is that these kinds of stories, like what we've seen with Burger King, can become a call not to use corporations as a punching bag, but to understand that we've got to have a globally competitive corporate tax rate.
And again, that seems to be the case. What we're just missing, though, is the action to get it done. I trust you both will get it done, so I'm glad we could at least agree to that.
Yes.
While you're here and taking a look at the New York Stock Exchange, which is driving so much of this, Representatives Messer, the Republican from Indiana, and Steven Horsford, the Democrat from Nevada. Thank you both. Really appreciate it.